March 1940. Britain faces a slow death, not from aerial bombardments over London, not from armored divisions crossing its fields, but from something much more sinister. The quiet vanishing of vessels in the frigid black depths of the Atlantic. Week after week, another shipping convoy departs from North American harbors filled with provisions, petroleum, medical supplies, and essential materials. Week after week, fewer vessels return safely. The figures paint a horrifying picture. During just the opening 4 months of 1940, German U-boats destroy more than 250 Allied vessels beneath the Atlantic waves. This isn't merely data on a maritime map. These represent thousands of metric tons of provisions that won't reach British homes, petroleum that won't drive British industry, and seamen who won't return to their families. Britain relies on approximately 55 million tons of imports annually for basic survival. The island produces merely about 30% of its food supply domestically. Without these shipping convoys, starvation threatens within a matter of months. Admiral Karl Dönitz, leading Germany's U-boat armada, grasps precisely his strategy. He's mastered the Wolfpack technique. Submarine groups operating collectively, synchronizing their strikes, overpowering convoy defenses. His U-boats don't engage honorably. They attack after dark, rising to strike under cover of night where British Aztec detection fails. One torpedo strike can destroy a 10,000-ton cargo vessel within moments. The sailors, if fortunate, might get a chance to evacuate before the icy Atlantic claims their lives. British convoy commanders confront impossible dilemmas on every crossing: speed ahead and abandon the slower cargo ships behind. Navigate evasively to dodge torpedoes, yet consume valuable fuel. Stay grouped for safety, yet create a larger target. Each choice could determine survival or death for hundreds of sailors. Winston Churchill, assuming the role of Prime Minister in May 1940, later states that the U-boat danger was the only thing that truly terrified him throughout the conflict. Consider that statement for a moment. Here stands a leader, confronting Nazi invasion threats, the Blitz attacks, France's collapse. Yet what haunts his nights are the silent predators lurking below the surface. By springtime 1940, Britain's commercial fleet perishes faster than construction facilities can build replacements. The Royal Navy stretches impossibly thin, attempting to guard convoys, pursue submarines, and protect the nation all at once. Destroyer commanders push their vessels to breaking point, rushing between convoy assignments. Never sufficient escorts available. Some convoys traverse with merely 1 or 2 warships, safeguarding 30 or 40 merchant ships. And here's the disturbing part. The German submarine crews grow increasingly aggressive. They're now working in coordinated groups, exchanging intelligence, summoning pack members upon spotting a convoy. One U-boat would trail the merchant vessels through daylight, transmitting location updates. Then after sunset, 5 or 6 submarines would gather for a synchronized slaughter. British seamen begin referring to this era as the happy time, though that's actually the German term. For U-boat personnel, it's shooting practice. For the Allied forces, it's pure terror. Yet the wolf packs aren't Britain's gravest concern, because while Churchill and his naval commanders fixate on the U-boat menace, another threat prowls the waters. One that doesn't hunt collectively, requires no crew, and attacks without notice in locations where ships should be entirely protected. November 21st, 1939. The British destroyer, HMS Gypsy, steams through the Thames estuary, just beyond the English shoreline. This area isn't hostile territory. This is essentially Britain's backyard, a waterway the Royal Navy has cleared for mines repeatedly. Suddenly, without notice, a tremendous explosion rips through the vessel's structure. Gypsy sinks within moments. No torpedo trail, no periscope detected, no advance warning. 3 days following, it occurs again. The cargo ship SS Terukuni Maru detonates in the identical location. Then another vessel and another. Ships are exploding in ports, river entrances, and shoreline waters that should be entirely secure. The blasts are devastating. Complete sections torn away, vessels split in two, crews killed immediately. By early December 1939, more than a dozen ships have disappeared in British territorial waters, and nobody understands the cause. The Admiralty stands confused. These aren't torpedo strikes. There's no indication of submarine presence in these shallow, heavily monitored regions. These aren't conventional contact mines either. British minesweepers have searched these passages repeatedly and discovered nothing. Ships are merely traveling normally, conducting their operations, then suddenly vanishing in a column of water and mangled steel. Fear begins infiltrating British maritime operations. Captains who confronted U-boats in the Atlantic without hesitation now dread entering their home ports, because at least facing a U-boat, you understand your opponent. You can maneuver evasively, deploy escorts, release depth charges, but this resembles battling a phantom. Sailors start labeling the Thames estuary the death trap. Some cargo captains absolutely refuse sailing through particular channels, even when directly commanded. The casualties continue accumulating through December. Into January 1940, the battleship HMS Nelson, 45,000 tons of British maritime strength, strikes something near Scotland and barely reaches port with her forward section almost destroyed. If capital warships aren't protected, nothing is. Britain's harbors transform into burial grounds, and the Royal Navy can't identify what's destroying the vessels. Then arrives the breakthrough. November 23, 1939, merely 2 days following HMS Gypsy's destruction, a German plane is observed dropping something via parachute onto the tidal flats near Shoeburyness at ebb tide. When the water recedes, British explosive disposal specialists carefully investigate. What they discover changes everything. It's a mine, yet unlike anything the Royal Navy has encountered previously. No contact triggers, no apparent detonation device. It rests there in the sediment, appearing almost benign. Lieutenant Commander John Ouvry and his squad spend hours meticulously studying it, aware one mistake could destroy them, and Britain's answer. They operate with freezing water rising around them as the tide returns, competing against time. What they uncover inside sends tremors through the Admiralty. This mine doesn't require a ship to contact it. It needs no physical touch whatsoever. Inside the housing lies something far more dangerous, a magnetic detection system that senses the metal structure of passing vessels. When a ship passes above, the mine detects the magnetic field from all that steel and iron, then explodes. The Germans have militarized physics itself. Immediately, everything becomes horribly clear. The shallow water strikes, the harbor detonations, the minesweepers passing directly over the devices without activating them. Britain isn't merely battling submarines now. It's battling an invisible threat that converts every ship's metal structure into its own doom. The recovered magnetic mine reaches the desk of someone who has no conventional naval background. Charles Goodeve is a Canadian chemistry instructor who arrived in Britain on an academic program before the conflict. He's not military personnel. He's not a naval designer. He's a researcher who became involved in Britain's urgent effort to recruit every capable mind against the Nazi danger. In late 1939, the Admiralty establishes something named the Department of Miscellaneous Weapons Development, essentially a collection point for unconventional concepts and the unusual individuals who propose them. Goodeve fits perfectly. When the magnetic mine challenge reaches his department in early 1940, most naval officers think in traditional frameworks, construct improved minesweepers, engineer stronger hull armor, chart the minefields more accurately. These are reasonable, rational approaches from seasoned sailors. Goodeve examines the challenge completely differently. He comprehends something the admirals miss. This isn't a maritime problem, it's a physics challenge. The mine ignores armor density or vessel construction. It's reacting to magnetic fields. Every ship essentially functions as a giant magnet, floating through Earth's magnetic environment. Goodeve's solution sounds absolutely insane when he first proposes it. Wrap the entire ship in electrical cable, pass current through the coils, create an opposing magnetic field that cancels out the ship's natural magnetism, make the vessel magnetically invisible. Naval officers hear this and think he's lost his mind. We're supposed to turn our ships into enormous electromagnets, wire thousands of vessels with miles of copper cable. During wartime, when copper is precious, while ships are desperately needed at sea? The proposal seems impractical. It appears expensive. It sounds like theoretical science that could never function in reality. Except Goodeve isn't merely theorizing. He's already conducted tests. In January 1940, he persuades the Admiralty to allow him to experiment on HMS Board, a minesweeper. His team installs a degaussing coil, a lengthy electrical cable wrapped around the vessel's perimeter at the waterline. When energized, this coil generates a magnetic field opposing the ship's inherent magnetism. They sail HMS Boardy through areas littered with magnetic mines. The mines detect nothing. The vessel passes harmlessly overhead while the devices rest on the seafloor, unable to detect their target. Goodeve's impossible concept functions. But proving something operates on one minesweeper versus implementing it across thousands of vessels during wartime represents entirely different challenges. Britain, in early 1940, operates on borrowed time. Every week brings more ship losses to magnetic mines. Every vessel destroyed means reduced food, less fuel, fewer supplies reaching the island. The nation can't wait for perfect solutions. It requires something functional immediately. The Admiralty makes a remarkable decision. They approve Goodeve's degaussing program and provide him authority to execute it. Throughout February and March 1940, degaussing stations appear at every significant British port. Teams of electricians and engineers operate around the clock. Ships arrive, receive degaussing coils installed around their structures, undergo testing, then depart, sometimes within 24 hours. The logistics prove staggering. Each vessel requires hundreds or thousands of feet of heavy copper cable. The coils must be precisely positioned to neutralize the ship's magnetic signature without interfering with navigation equipment or electrical systems. Every installation demands custom configuration because each vessel has unique dimensions, construction, and magnetic characteristics. Britain's electrical engineering workforce, already stretched managing wartime power systems, suddenly must become naval magnetic specialists. Universities contribute physics professors. Industrial firms contribute their best electrical engineers. Even the electrical unions contribute skilled workers who comprehend high-voltage systems. They're taught rudimentary magnetic theory, provided diagrams and specifications, then dispatched to degaussing installations across the nation. Quality control becomes critical. A poorly installed degaussing system might fail to protect the vessel, or worse, actually enhance its magnetic signature, making it more susceptible. Every installation undergoes testing, using special equipment that measures the ship's magnetic field at various points. Operators adjust the electrical current flowing through the coils until the vessel's magnetic presence drops to minimal levels. This isn't a one-time solution. A ship's magnetic characteristics shift over time. Cargo weight alters the hull's position in the water. Steel fatigues and acquires new magnetism from Earth's field. Therefore, degaussing becomes ongoing maintenance, not a single fix. Ships require periodic redegaussing, particularly after extended voyages or when carrying different cargo loads. Britain establishes degaussing checkpoints along convoy routes. Vessels pause mid-journey, undergo magnetic field testing, receive adjustments as needed. The system grows increasingly sophisticated. By mid-1940, Britain degausses not merely naval and cargo vessels, but also fishing boats, harbor craft, even small civilian vessels operating in coastal waters. The operations scale becomes enormous. Britain possesses thousands of vessels requiring protection. As America enters the conflict and Liberty ships begin reaching Britain, each requires degaussing before approaching British waters. Canadian and American ports establish their own degaussing facilities. The technology and expertise spread across the Allied maritime network. Engineers create portable degaussing equipment for remote locations where permanent facilities aren't viable. Mobile teams travel between smaller ports, installing protection as needed. The entire program operates under immense pressure. Every delay means another vessel potentially lost. Workers labor through air raids, knowing each ship they protect might save hundreds of lives. Yet there's zero space for errors, because a faulty installation could doom a vessel just as effectively as no protection. Sailors initially view degaussing with doubt. They observe these electricians wrapping their vessels in cable and think it resembles magical thinking. How can wire and electricity protect against explosives? But as weeks pass and degaussed vessels navigate through mine-infested waters without incident, confidence builds. Crews that previously refused harbor approaches now sail with renewed assurance. The monthly statistics begin shifting. Magnetic mine losses steadily decline as more vessels receive protection. By late 1940, the majority of Britain's commercial fleet operates with degaussing systems. The program that appeared impossible in January becomes standard practice by year's end. The Germans notice. Dönitz receives reports that magnetic mines prove increasingly ineffective. German intelligence identifies degaussing installations in British harbors. They recognize Britain has neutralized their technological advantage. But Goodeve's team remains vigilant. British magnetic research facilities analyze captured German mines to understand evolving designs. They discovered Germany developing more sensitive magnetic triggers, attempting to detect even degaussed vessels. The degaussing program adapts continuously. Engineers refine coil designs. They enhance testing procedures. They develop better training for installation crews. The process becomes streamlined, efficient, professional. What initially required days per vessel reduces to hours. Degaussing becomes as routine as refueling or maintenance. Ships enter port, receive their magnetic protection, and depart. Just another part of wartime naval operations. Through 1941 and 1942, as the Atlantic battle intensifies, degaussing provides one certainty amid chaos. Convoys still face U-boats, weather, and aircraft attacks. But magnetic mines no longer pose a significant threat. Merchant captains can focus on surface and underwater dangers without worrying about their vessel's steel betraying them. The emotional relief proves substantial. Sailors enduring torpedo attacks at least comprehend the threat and can respond, zigzag, drop depth charges, call for assistance. Magnetic mines offered no defense, no warning, no chance. Degaussing restores that sense of control. Crews understand their vessel possesses protection, that scientists solved the problem, that somebody addressed the invisible threat. The program's success stems from multiple factors. Goodeve's scientific brilliance obviously mattered, but equally important was institutional courage. The Admiralty wagered on an unconventional solution proposed by an outsider. They provided resources, authority, and freedom to implement a radical concept without bureaucratic delays. That kind of trust and innovation, particularly during existential crisis, separates organizations that adapt from those that perish. Britain needed that flexibility because 1940 offered no margin for conventional thinking. The nation faced invasion, bombardment, and starvation simultaneously. Every problem required immediate solutions regardless of how unorthodox. Degaussing exemplified that survival-driven innovation. Moreover, the program demonstrated what Britain could accomplish when properly motivated. From concept to fleet-wide implementation occurred in months, not years. Thousands of workers mastered new skills. Entire supply chains reorganized to deliver copper cable and electrical components. The engineering community collaborated across traditional boundaries. Military, civilian, academic, all focused on one objective. That unified effort, that total mobilization of intellectual and industrial resources, characterized Britain's wartime transformation. The nation that entered 1940 wasn't the same one that emerged. The war forced modernization, integration of science and military strategy, breakdown of class barriers that previously limited who could contribute to national defense. Goodeve himself embodied that change. A Canadian academic with no military pedigree essentially rewrote naval doctrine because Britain recognized good ideas matter more than credentials. After the immediate crisis passed, after degaussing became routine, the innovation continued. British researchers developed improved magnetic detection equipment. They created more sophisticated degaussing systems requiring less power and copper. They shared technology with American and Canadian allies who further refined the techniques. The collaborative scientific warfare that began with degaussing expanded into numerous fields. Radar development accelerated through similar cooperation. Anti-submarine tactics improved through combined British-American research. The atomic program eventually emerged from these wartime scientific partnerships. Goodeve's contribution established a template, identify the scientific principle behind an enemy weapon, develop a countermeasure, scale it rapidly, and integrate it fleet-wide. This approach influenced post-war naval development worldwide. Yet beyond immediate military applications, degaussing represented something larger. It demonstrated that modern warfare increasingly involved scientific battles invisible to ordinary observers. The public witnessed ships sinking and planes falling, but they couldn't see the electromagnetic warfare, the acoustic detection, the magnetic signature management happening beneath the surface. Victory required winning these invisible battles first. The side that better understood physics, better exploited scientific principles, better integrated researchers into military operations, gained decisive advantages. Germany demonstrated this with magnetic mines initially. Britain demonstrated it by neutralizing them. The race continued throughout the conflict with both sides pushing scientific boundaries. Goodeve recognized this reality earlier than most military leaders. He understood warfare had evolved beyond ships and guns into a contest of applied science. His success with degaussing proved that perspective correct and influenced how nations approached defense research afterward. The program's legacy extends to present day. Every modern naval vessel employs degaussing technology, though contemporary systems far surpass 1940's capabilities. Today's warships utilize computer-controlled degaussing that continuously adjusts to varying conditions. Submarines, which must avoid detection by magnetic sensors, use even more advanced systems. The magnetic signature management that Goodeve pioneered now represents standard naval engineering taught at maritime academies worldwide. Beyond military applications, degaussing principles protect countless civilian systems. Underwater cables, scientific instruments, sensitive electronics all employ magnetic shielding, derived from Goodeve's wartime work. The same physics that saved merchant vessels now protects global communications infrastructure. But perhaps the most significant lesson involves institutional adaptation under stress. The Royal Navy in 1940 represented one of history's most tradition-bound institutions. Centuries of customs, protocols, established procedures. Yet, confronting an existential threat when vessels exploded and conventional solutions failed, the Admiralty granted a university professor with an unconventional idea authority to modify their entire fleet. That institutional bravery proves rare. Consider what Britain accomplished in under 2 years. They took a theoretical concept, proved its effectiveness, scaled it to thousands of vessels, trained thousands of workers, established global infrastructure, and essentially resolved a problem threatening to starve the nation into capitulation, all while battling on multiple fronts, enduring bombing campaigns, facing potential invasion, and operating under absolute desperation. The convoys continued sailing. Britain survived, and though degaussing represented just one element among many, convoy tactics, escort carriers, long-range patrol aircraft, code-breaking, and pure courage all played vital roles. It eliminated one lethal threat precisely when Britain couldn't sustain additional losses. Sometimes, during war, the most radical idea proves correct. Sometimes, wrapping vessels in miles of electrical cable and converting them into electromagnets exactly saves a nation. And sometimes the hero isn't the admiral commanding from the bridge or the pilot in the cockpit. It's a Canadian chemistry professor who understood magnetism better than anyone imagined possible.